Will the Apple VR headset be good for gaming? Some sources say yes. Hello Neighbor VR, Everslot Invasion, and Crime and Mercenary Tales all come to VR this week. And finally, what is Sony's strategy to get PS5 users excited about PSVR2 this year? It's a packed episode of the Runback. Let's not waste another minute. So the list of games coming out for Quest on June 1st is starting to look crazy. There's never been so many new releases on a single day for Meta, and the announcements of additional games, they just keep coming. Assuming that none of these titles are among the 40 in Meta's showcase, June 1st is going to be a wallet buster for sure. Add Killer Frequency to that list. Team 17 just dropped a new trailer, and you better believe I'm playing that the moment it comes out on the Quest store. But before June comes the last days of May, and this Thursday, we're getting even more new games between the official store and the App Lab. Newly released on App Lab, we've got Draconite, a horde-based fantasy shooter where you fight off waves of enemies with guns that you customize. Sort of like a mix between Crashland and Mother Gunship Forge. It's a free-to-play game, so I don't know how the monetization works yet, but there's enough polish in the trailer that I might give it a try. Hello Neighbor VR comes to Quest. Now, there hasn't been a shred of gameplay in the trailers, but I know it's a big deal in the mobile and indie game spaces, so expectations are kinda high. I'm guessing it's a stealth action game, except maybe trade Solid Snake for some neighborhood kids. I have no idea, but we'll find out on Thursday. Crime and Mercenary Tales is the narrative single-player game of the week. It's from the devs at Carbon Studios who made Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, Tempest Fall, and Wizards Dark Times. Now, to be honest, I didn't love either one of those games, but I'm hoping that their experience on the Quest might lend to a better game. Crime breaks down into 8 bite-sized stories. That's kind of appealing, especially when you're pressed for time. I guess we'll see when I do first impressions this week. Actually, if you guys want to see me play that live, I might make that the first game that I do a live YouTube stream for, so let me know in the comments. Everslot Invasion is the big multiplayer game of the week. It's my favorite type of multiplayer, which is co-op. It's also got those magic buzzwords like roguelike and class-based, which are all the stuff that appeals to me. I've never played the PC version of this game, Everslot, without the invasion, which leans a lot closer to Doom than what this is. With that in mind, I'm going in blind. It looks heavy on the action, even if the trailers don't show much cooperation. Maybe that'll be my second live stream. Let me know in the comments. Ian Hamilton and the guys over at Upload VR were formally and officially invited to attend the Apple WWDC event on June 8th. That's a big deal because this is formal acknowledgement that we are getting VR something, and Upload VR is the outlet that should do it. I'm excited for those guys. But while they're over there, maybe they can get some questions answered, like namely, is this Apple VR thing going to be playing games or what? While we Apple fans have been waiting patiently for the M1 version of No Man's Sky, could it come to Apple VR? Well, first, I guess we just need to know if the rumored $3,000 device will play games at all. Denny Unger over at Cloudhead Games made me pause. He tweeted, Phil Schiller promises a strong gaming component via third-party apps at launch. To my knowledge, none of my peers in the VR industry have been contacted by Apple. So do they mean 2D games? Junky AR apps? What are they talking about here exactly? Conversely, David Heaney tweeted, hot take, Apple's headset will have a strong gaming component, but it won't involve holding a console controller split in half and pushing on a thumbstick to slide around a virtual world. Now, previously, Upload VR tweeted, Apple exec Phil Schiller reportedly has a VR sim racing setup and pushed for the company's own headset to have a strong gaming component. So what is it? Is this a completely non-gaming machine? Did only super secret developers get access to make games on the platform? If No Man's Sky is a possibility, and I really hope it is, could we see Resident Evil Village, which is also supported by M1 Max, but not by the tablets? I honestly hadn't thought of bigger titles like No Man's Sky or Resident Evil until I was making this episode. I feel like these are both pie-in-the-sky dreamland projects, but I can't help but thinking there might be something here. Apple is not about games. I wish they took them more seriously, but they don't. At best, we'll probably see some AR experiences or some quirky flat screen games that will play natively inside of a projected screen inside the headset. Apple hasn't mentioned controllers in years, and I don't think that they'll start now. I'd love to be wrong. Now, as an Apple consumer, I'm telling you, I love to be wrong, but I just don't see it. Regarding Sony, there's a correction to last week's Runback. Big shout out to Shades for catching this. Sony Showcase tomorrow is not just PSVR2. My bad, I was wrong. It covers all of Sony's gaming plans. VR is just a part of that. Now, whether it's a big chunk or a small chunk remains to be seen. I'm hoping for a 50-50 split. That might be optimistic, maybe exceedingly optimistic, but it is what it is. All Sony AAA first-party games already focusing on single-player experiences will have both a flat and fully featured VR mode of the full game ready to go. And that's a strategy that doesn't take away the sales from flat gamers who have no interest in VR. It incentivizes the VR curious to consider buying an additional piece to their PlayStation 5. What it does is it breathes new life into already successful and established games. I've been screaming from the mountains for 2 years about how Sony should handle PSVR2. Hybrid VR games. Those are the 2D titles that are both for flat and playable in VR. With one purchase, I think that's the way to go. Announce 1 or 2 big AAA exclusive games that Sony is working on internally. Maybe talk about updates for the PSVR 1 games porting over to the PSVR 2. Then surprise everyone with a showreel of upcoming games that everyone assumes is just for PS5. Then drop the bomb that everything you see will be playable on PSVR 2. The PSVR 2 without parole guys seem to agree.
My dream is that somebody's on stage and shows off a bunch of games, a bunch of flat screen PlayStation games.
And everything you just saw.
And then after they show 20 games, they go, and everything you just saw is fully playable on PlayStation VR 2. Some of these games could just easily be played in the headset, right? And use the DualSense controller. And it's just like, hey, here's another way to experience this game. It's still played the exact same way, in the exact same perspective, with the exact same controller. But here you are, you get to sit in VR and look around and admire this beautiful world.
Look, the big question is, should Sony court existing fans to convince them to try VR? Or should they push towards new fans who have neither the headset nor the PS5 and want to know what all this VR stuff is all about? Eric Q2C of Impact Reality has a take.
Sony already has us, right? They've already got most of the VR community that wants to be involved with Sony. To get the people that don't have VR yet to go out and have a PlayStation 5 to go out and buy one, giving them either new IPs or existing IPs that are already in VR into a new VR game is not going to do it. We need the titles that are not VR, that are huge, flat PlayStation 5 games to be into VR, right, to force people to want to go, what? I can go play, whatever game, that I've been enjoying flat. Now I can go play it in virtual reality, or the next version is going to be played in virtual reality. I need to go buy a PlayStation VR 2.
I think that the starting point for Sony has to be, how do I get a percentage of the existing PS5 owners to think about engaging with VR? Are they going to be interested in new IPs that they've never heard of before? Or are they more interested in tried and true games like Resident Evil Village? Put out enough of those AAA games that they might already have in their library, and they might consider getting a headset. Eventually, constant positive buzz about how VR transforms even the most familiar experiences eventually equals a headset sold. Look, man, nobody's buying a headset for Solaris 2. And that's no disrespect on the Solaris team. I thought Solaris was a lot of fun on my Quest. It just means that virgin IP isn't as sure a thing as the robust experiences that gamers who are already resistant to VR are familiar with. And what about this constant rumor of Half-Life Alyx? Is that coming to PSVR 2? I just want one person in the comments to explain to me what Valve gets from such a deal. I can't think of one reason for Valve to put out this game on any console other than their own headset. Is Half-Life Alyx outstanding? I mean, yeah, I've heard it is, but I haven't played it. Is it a system seller? Are PS5 players lining up around the block to get PSVR 2 just because it's announced? I doubt it. Do you know what would get more people to pick up a PSVR 2? Everyone's calling out for Astrobot, and with time, yeah, you'll get that. But I'm thinking an Insomniac internal port of the new Ratchet & Clank, that would be amazing. Insomniac really is Sony's secret weapon in VR. They've been a developer that has been working in VR long before Sony acquired them. They might be working on something new, but you better believe that whatever their VR effort will be, it will be just as big as Half-Life Alyx. But for right now, Ratchet & Clank seems like a great choice, with Returnal being my second draft pick for what we might expect to see in VR tomorrow. BigScreen just announced a $32 monthly payment plan for 3 years if you want to invest in BigScreen Beyond. Now, if you don't know about BigScreen Beyond, it is the smallest and most powerful headset that you can get in that comfortable form factor for PC VR. It was a labor of love, and it's fully compatible with your existing base stations if you're already into that ecosystem. It's also customized to fit each individual user's head and pupillary specifications. So yeah, this is a high-end, customized premier VR experience. PC VR users won't stop talking about it, frankly. The payment plan is bold and aggressively pursues the PC VR audience, making VR accessible and affordable to everybody. I think it's a great move. Probably the best move for keeping PC VR alive, at least until Valve shows its hand. And that's it. Another episode of the Runback is in the books. Listen, I want to thank everyone for watching. Your support means a lot, and I want to integrate your feedback into these episodes. And from the comments, Shade offered a solution to Meta's avatar dilemma that I brought up last episode. He said, as for avatar integration into other games, I think it'd be great if the company making the avatar system could make multiple variants of each option to suit different art styles. So for a particular type of beard, say, there'd be a realistic version, a cartoony smooth version, a low poly version, etc. Then developers could just specify the style they want to be used for their game, and all the aspects of the player's avatars would automatically be converted to that style. Listen, thanks for responding, man. And I agree that your solution of making prefab customizable avatar builds is a solid path for developers. I'm actually surprised Meta hadn't thought of it. As much as I love Meta's avatars, implementing them in certain genres like horror could be an immersion-shattering deal breaker. But tell me what you think in the comments. Would you like to see more widespread adoption of Meta's avatars in your games? Is BigScreen Beyond something you're interested in? And would you like easier payment options for luxury VR items? Hey, B-Haptics, if you want to start a payment plan for your haptic feedback vest, sign me up for that because I love one. It's just a little bit out of my price range. How should Sony roll out their PSVR2 releases this year? Should Sony invest more in hybrid games or bespoke games? And does Half-Life Alyx mean anything to people on the fence about buying a PSVR 2? That's all I got, futurists. I'll be looking for your feedback in the comments, and until then, show out.